Hi, this is Tom Melcher, the founder and CEO of ShowScore.com, and I'm talking with Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By on UNC Radio.
Oh, shalom, my friends. This is your old pal and buddy, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am a theater aficionado. I am a theater lover. Love to talk about the theater, to read about it. I would go to theater more often if I could afford it, which, with $150, $200 tickets, who can? It's more important than ever to kind of see when a show opens, what did the big critics think of it? And also, what do schnooks like me think of it, the little people? Well, finally, there is a website that puts all that together and tells you, this show opened, and this is what everybody thought of it. It's called ShowScore.com. That's show with a little hyphen thing, score.com. Now, the person who put this website together is this big entrepreneur. He went to Yale and Harvard, and he's built media companies in China, and he loves theater. So he's taken all this knowledge and this technology info and created ShowScore.com, and we're going to talk to him about it right now. His name is Tom Melcher, and welcome to the Daverhood. Shalom, Tom.
Shalom, Rabbi. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, yes, very pleased and happy to have you. So, here's the deal. Let's even start and tell people, even more than what I just said, why should they visit ShowScore.com?
They should visit ShowScore.com if they're looking for a really easy way to figure out what shows to see in New York City and how to get a really good price.
Okay, tell us what they will find at the web. I mean, obviously they can go there and surf it, but be more specific. What will they physically see there?
So what they'll physically see when they visit the website is a very easy to use and well-organized collection of all of the theater shows running in New York City on a given day. So we have all of Broadway, we have all of off-Broadway and off-Broadway. So on a given night, there are about 168 shows running in New York City. And for each show, we pull all the information together in one place. So we have all the listing information, like when is it and where is it. We have all of the critics' reviews for the show organized together in one place with numbers, like the New York Times gave it an 80, and the Wall Street Journal gave it a 90 or whatever. We have member reviews from normal people who see the show and what they think. We then have all of the prices for the show. So what is the box office? What are all of the discounts? Sort of like Kayak does for travel, for airplanes, we have for theater. And then finally, we have a way for you to actually buy tickets to the show seamlessly. So you can just go on to ShowScore and click. It's actually one page. It's 3 clicks, and you're done. And it's all together in one place. So many people call ShowScore like the one stop for theater.
Let me ask, if they want to buy a ticket for a big off-Broadway show or Broadway show, do you broker even the discount tickets, or do you just do what telecharge charges for those?
We actually offer our members a choice. So ShowScore is a membership community that's free to join. And what we do is for a show, let's take, say, Anastasia or Chicago, we list not only our price, but then we also list all of the discounts that are available for that show. And if you're a theater fan, you know that discounts really depend upon the day you're seeing it, where you're sitting, whether it's a partial view or full view. And so our philosophy of the website is let the consumer decide what he or she wants. We put all the information together, and then you can make the best choice for you. So if you want to sit on a Saturday night in the center orchestra up close, you're going to pay more for that. But if you want to go on, say, a Tuesday evening and sit in the rear back balcony, you're going to pay less for that. The point is to put it all together so that you can choose what's best for you.
And do you include all these lotteries that they have now? Is that part of it?
We do, yeah. So we include all of the lotteries and all of the rush and all of the standing room. For instance, lotteries are really great for people who would love to see a show, but their schedule is flexible because you enter the lottery typically on the same day, and then they tell you that afternoon if you can go to the show that night. So it's great if you have a flexible schedule, but if you're flying in from out of town, typically lotteries are harder to do because of the same-day nature of them, but we also do include them because it really depends. It may be that you wake up in the morning and you just want to try your luck. We also have Rush. Rush is a different kind of ticket where you basically go to the theater and you stand in line early in the morning. So if you're in New York City and you get up early and you walk around, you'll see lots of people standing in lines. They're waiting to get Rush tickets. Rush tickets work every day. A theater, depending upon how their tickets they're selling, will make Rush tickets available first come, first serve for the people in line. So it's a great way to get tickets if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, then sometimes you can run to a different theater and see if they have tickets available, or you can just go out and get breakfast.
Now, let me ask you, Tom Melcher. Well, first of all, the question I should have asked right from the very beginning. Are you Jewish?
Am I Jewish? Good question.
Very important question.
Let me say that all of my grandparents are Jewish, and I am culturally very much from the Jewish tradition, but I don't consider myself religiously Jewish, if I can make that distinction.
Well, but if your grandparents were all Jewish, what about your mom and dad?
So it depends. You're a rabbi, so this is an interesting conversation.
Yes.
I think by the definitions of the Jewish faith, I think a rabbi would say that I am Jewish because my grandparents were all Jewish and my parents were Jewish.
I was wondering how a goy would get so involved in theater and love theater so much. There had to be some Jew in you, so I'm excited to hear this. So, do you remember the first either show tune you ever heard or the first show that you were ever taken to?
I remember both, actually.
Ooh.
So the first show that I started obsessing with, and there's actually photographic evidence of this, was running around the living room of my grandparents' home singing Fiddler on the Roof songs.
Of course.
Fiddler on the Roof, it doesn't matter what faith you are, it's just a fabulous show. And then the first show that I actually was fortunate to see that was a Broadway level show was Godspell in Boston in the tryouts. My 7th grade music teacher in a public high school in New Hampshire, God bless him, took us on his own nickel and own time. We paid for the tickets, but drove us down in his little car, and we got to see Godspell in Boston, and it was terrific. And that must have been, I don't know how old you are in 7th grade, maybe 12 or 13 years old, something like that.
Something like that. And was that the start of being a real... Maybe, well, you call yourself a theater nerd, a theater geek, a fanatic.
I am a theater geek. I was the kid, like so many people, who did theater in school, in elementary school, and junior high school and high school. And then I did, as you mentioned, went to Yale and was a Whiff and Poof, which is a famous Yale singing group, and sang there. And then I did go to Harvard, to business school.
Wait. Stop, please. Hold it. I have to stop you right there because you said you were a Whiff and Poof. Now, and you were, I guess, in Glee Club doing that. Therefore, we must ask you to do at least a small portion of the Whiff and Poof song. Would you please?
To the tables down at Maury's, to the place where Louis dwells, to the dear old Temple Bar we love so well. Sing the Whiff and Poofs assembled with their glasses raised on high, and the magic of their singing casts its spell.
You do have a very nice voice. That's very pretty.
Well, thank you. I haven't sung for years, but put me on the spot, and I guess I could come through.
And you remember all the lyrics, and especially I like that because you mentioned the word temple in there. That makes me very happy.
That was intentional, Rabbi. Yeah.
Oh, good.
There is a Temple Bar in New Haven, Connecticut, which is certainly not an institution of higher calling, put it that way.
Well, but it's not the Beth Israel Temple Bar, which is where you'll find me every other night. But Tom, I didn't mean to interrupt you when you were talking about first going to Yale, then Harvard, and then what came after that?
Well, no, and so then I was in the Harvard Business School. They have a show. And then since then, I've been in business. I've been building internet companies for more than 25 years, and none of them were theater. They were internet companies, but in the meantime, I was a theater fan, a very hardcore theater fan. I did not live in New York, but I would come to New York and gorge on theater over a weekend, see 4 or 5 shows. Never did theater other than as a fan. And moved to New York 4 years ago with my wife. Our daughters were by that point in college, and we had a daughter who was doing a gap year between high school and college. And we were in between jobs ourselves, so we said, hey, kind of wasted on a 18-year-old, a gap year. It's kind of hard to know how cool that is if you're that age. So my wife and I, for fun, said, hey, we're going to do a gap year for grown-ups. We decided on our gap year, instead of going to an exotic country or learning a language, which is what you'd probably normally do, we'd sort of done that in along the way. So in New York City, we stopped counting at 250 shows. We honestly saw a lot of theater, a lot. And in that process, we discovered how hard it was to figure out what to see and to get a good price, because the information is scattered across so many different websites. You know, if you've got to go to this website or that website, you want to look up the reviews, you end up with a browser that has like 25 tabs open. And then if you are a New Yorker and you see a lot of theater, you come to find out that, no one typically pays retail for their tickets. There's always some angle to get for a ticket, but good luck finding it. It's like reading a novel by Kafka. And it's terrible. So as the internet nerd, I said, well, where's the Rotten Tomatoes? Where's the Fandango? Where's the Kayak? These are very well understood ideas, but they didn't exist for the theater. So I went around and talked to all the theater people I knew, and I said, look, here's the idea. I will help fund it. I'll sit on the board of directors. I had done 9 startup companies by that point. The reaction I got was, well, that's actually a good idea. We can't do it, or we don't want to do it. Why don't you do it? And I finally got so frustrated that I wanted it and my friends wanted it, so I just started it. And that was less than 3 years ago.
Well, Mazel Miklik, and certainly you are an entrepreneur. You started all these internet companies, so you had, I guess, the treasure chest to make this happen. Do you ever expect it to break even, let alone make money?
Yes, we do. I like keeping score with dollars and cents. So yes, we do generate revenue now, and yes, we do expect that it will break even. Do I think it's going to be the next Facebook and Google? No, of course not. But will it be able to make enough money so that we can hire great people and compensate them fairly? And then if we make a lot of money, frankly, we're going to give it away back into the theater world. And support more theater, especially new work. I just think this art form is very important. So our revenues, interestingly, come from our members. So we don't sell a lot of advertising, which is what you might expect.
Yeah, because there aren't a lot of banner ads.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ads on the website. And we did that because, there are other theater websites out there, and they're just covered with advertising. I understand that's necessary for them to run their businesses, but as a consumer, it can be somewhat annoying.
Of course.
To see all of these ads, right? So the way we started to make money was we invented a thing called Member Nights. And the way Member Nights works is that I went around and talked to all the nonprofit theater companies in New York City. I talked to more than 150 of them, believe it or not. And what I kept hearing from them was, we have a problem. We do these shows. Nobody knows about them. Nobody comes in the beginning. And then we get one critic review, and then we sell out, but we have to close in 7 days. So it's a real problem. Meanwhile, from our members, what I heard was, I know there are all of these small shows happening off Broadway, but I never find out about them unless somebody tells me about them. And then I don't go, and by the time I hear they're good, I try to get a ticket, they're closed. So what I heard from both sides was a problem of awareness. So what we say to the shows is, look, take some of the tickets in the early performances, like just when you're starting the show, give them to us for free. We will then email them to our members based on their taste. We're going to send them to people who love theater and we think will probably love your show. And we give the free tickets to the member. We charge the member a $5 fee to make sure they're going to show up. Because if somebody gives you something for nothing, you may or may not show up. But if you pay $5, you're going to show up. And we make $5 at a time, quite a lot of money from that. And more importantly, what happens is to the theater fan, they suddenly have a way to see a lot more theater at a very affordable price point. And to the theater maker, they suddenly have an audience of theater fans who help spread the word. about the show.
The idea of that has been around since audience extras 30 years ago and theater extras of papering the house and giving things to senior groups. But it's kind of nice that you have a membership of really dedicated theater people.
Yeah, and what we do is we ask the theater fan to score the show, and 85% of them actually do, and that really helps spread the word. And the people who are doing this, unlike, say, a papering service like you mentioned, they really are doing it because they love the theater. They're not just sort of looking for something else to do, or, today they may go to a classical concert, tomorrow they may go to a theatrical performance. Mm-hmm. Is that you only get to participate in this program if you've scored 6 or more shows. And then once a show reaches what we call trending, so it has 20 reviews with a score of 80 or higher, then we plaster it on the homepage and we tell everybody about it. So from a theater maker point of view, it's extremely valuable getting the word out, and we don't charge them for that. They don't have any money to pay for it anyway.
Right.
So
if it's an off-Broadway show, tickets, are going to be $15 to $22 at most. In the meantime, and they're paying for rent for the theater, they got no money. So it's great that you're at least giving them people in seats up until the critics start to come.
Yeah. And, Rabbi, what you said at the beginning, I just wanted to comment about the $150 to $200 a night. And for your listeners, I just wanted to provide some interesting statistics about that. So you are right that is the common perception, but it turns out it's not actually accurate. So on a given night in New York, there are 168 shows on average running. Of those, there are usually between, call it 30 to 35 Broadway shows.
Right.
So 30 to 35 out of 168 is not a lot. Now, those Broadway shows, some of them are extremely expensive, and the rest of them are expensive. But it turns out that the 130-odd shows that are not Broadway shows, that are off and off Broadway, as you know as a theater fan, typically it's the same people. It's the same choreographers and the directors, and many times the same actors that are doing Broadway shows. They're just in between shows, and they're doing these other productions. It turns out that because we are the only players that gather all this information, on a given night, 30% of the tickets in New York City for theater are $25 or less full price. We're not talking about discounts. $25 or less. And because we've now collected so many reviews of the theater, I can conclusively tell you that there is no correlation between how much you paid and whether you like it. So in other words, what that means is we've all been to shows where we paid a small fortune, and it really was not a show for us. We didn't like it, right?
Right.
And then there are times where you go and you see a show that, you feel like you're taking a flyer on, and it changed your life, and it only costs $15. Whether you're a tourist coming from Colorado or you're a local, we really encourage you to take advantage of these off and off Broadway shows that are very affordable. And the beauty of ShowScore is that we now make it easy for you to figure out if you're going to like it. Because all of these small shows, you haven't heard of them, and you don't know, is it something I'm going to like or not? And the good news is now you can go on ShowScore and you see all the reviews in one place from the critics and the members, and you can say, wow, this looks like something I'd really like. I don't know what you're interested in, but let's say one of your listeners is really interested in political issues or feminist issues or LGBTQ issues or, whatever, or somebody else is really into puppets. You can read the reviews and say, wow, I think I would like this. Conversely, you could read the reviews and say, no, that is not my show, I'm not going to go.
Do you worry about a producer sort of loading the deck? Like getting people to review a show favorably, but they're all connected to the show, or they're fake members, as it were. And so you suddenly have all these positive reviews of a show, and they're written by the same 3 people.
So we are very worried of that, of course, because if you don't believe what you're reading, then that doesn't work. We take a rather unusual approach to that. We are a community site that you join for free. Unlike any other major site that has consumer reviews, when you write something on ShowScore and you press publish, it immediately goes live. We do not moderate. So you could write hate words, you could write swear words, and it immediately goes live. Then what we do is we give every member of the community the equal ability to report abuse. Underneath every single review, there's a very clear thing that says report abuse. You click it. A little form pops up, you fill it in, it takes 2 seconds, you press a button, and the review goes away.
Oh.
Here's our reviewing cycle. And the it, the privacy of that person is protected. So we don't say who it was that reported it. It just goes offline. And so as a result, it works a lot like Wikipedia. You know, anyone can edit any page in Wikipedia. And sometimes in very small corners of Wikipedia, there are people that are playing games going back and forth. But most of the time, actually, the wisdom of the crowd really is wise.
Right.
So in our case, we now have 310,000 member reviews. And to put that number in perspective, that's 6 times more than Facebook, TripAdvisor, and Yelp reviews of theater combined in the same time period.
Wow.
So we have a lot of reviews of the theater. The incidence of report abuse is less than 2%. And knock on wood, we have not had a single case of hate speech.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Case.
I'm not even thinking in terms of the hate speech that you get on YouTube and things like that. I'm thinking like if you know the website Broadway Stars and they have all that chat, sometimes you get ringers on there and people who just love the first preview of a show and they're raving and everybody casts a little eye askance and they go, really? Really? Is this the mother of the playwright, you know?
It's on show score, and and the way we do that is every member, right underneath his or her name on show score, display name on show score, we have badges for how many reviews have you written, how many followers you have, and how many helpfuls you have. You can very quickly see if someone is giving something 100 and they've never written another review, and the review is not especially pithy, then our community pretty much typically says, bing, report abuse, and the review's gone, and it goes into the review cycle. So what I would say to you, Rabbi, and anybody else who's listening who may be a show score member or hopefully becomes a show score member, you have as much a right as I do to go through. And so when you are looking at a show and you see something that doesn't look right to you, report it. We will go through the process. It works. I mean, it really works because some of the shill reviews never come back because the person's like, well, I guess they got me. But a lot of people, they didn't fully understand how it works.
Oh,
and the other thing that we do is that for a show that has a lot of reviews, we play with the order that the reviews are in. So the reviews that show up on the page at the top are the reviews from the most trusted members of our community, the people who write a lot of reviews. They're very highly followed. Whereas reviews from people that are new to the community, they're at the bottom.
That's sort of like what Amazon does sometimes with record reviews and things like that. Because if this is a good representative review of someone who really liked it, and this is a good representative review of someone who didn't like it, but is intelligently saying why. You know, I think they do that, and you guys are kind of doing that too.
Yeah, and also on show score, your listeners can't see it right now, but we came up with a very unusual way of reviewing the theater. It's actually quite complex, which is so surprising that so many people are doing it because it's so much harder than doing a Facebook or Yelp or Foursquare review. We ask you, first of all, to give the show a number. Second of all, to pick 5 words that describe the show, and we give you a list or you can make up your own words. And then finally, we ask you to write 2 sentences of see it if, fill in the blank, don't see it if, fill in the blank. And each blank is the length of a tweet, and you press publish. I frankly think that the complexity of it, we did it on purpose because I did not want to read a bunch of silly reviews. You know, go see it, yay, 5 stars. I mean, please, life is too short to read that stuff. So we intentionally designed it so that you actually had to write something that was helpful. And we're very clear that our standard is around being helpful. It is not around whether or not you liked it. So if you loved it, it's easy to write, see it if you blah, 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 blah. But we force you to say, don't see it if you blah, blah, blah. And for somebody who loved a show, sometimes that's really hard for them.
Sure, yeah.
Don't see it. I can't think of a reason. It's like, well, that's not good enough. If you went to a show and you absolutely hated it, you can say, I give this show a 10. I hated it. Don't see it if, that's easy to fill in. See it if, you have to sit there and say, okay, well, who would like this show?
Well, see it if you're a masochist, I guess would be the answer to that
No,
one.
well, I got to tell you, Rabbi, guess what the number one answer is when people hate a show and they fill in the see it if? Guess.
See it if you want to die for 2 hours. No, what?
See it if you're my mother-in-law.
brilliant. I love it. No, I love my mother-in-law, but yes, but that's great.
Yeah. And we didn't come up with that. I mean, but it's statistically significant. It's so funny.
Oh, that's
sitting
true.
there, and whether you're a man or a woman responding, you hate it. See it if you're my mother-in-law. Why? Well, it's pedantic, or it's trivial, or whatever.
Now, let me ask you, Tom Melcher. You did all this stuff before ShowScore.com. Please explain to me in the most basic language that you can. You did these internet companies in China and also here. What is an internet company? What does it do? I mean, there's the internet. You go on it, you use it. What companies did you make?
So the company that you probably have heard of that is still around, that I was involved with at a senior executive level, was CNET, CNET.com.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
the computer thing. They tell you whether you should buy a piece of computer equipment or not. Was that them?
Exactly, yeah. Yep. So I was one of the senior executives in that team. Another company was when you want to build a website, you need to have software on your computer that helps you build a website, and I was part of a team that was one of the very first companies. It's now part of IBM.
Whoa.
It's in the IBM tool suite. So it's things like that are either tech jargon, they're either so-called internet media sites, which is sort of like the online equivalent of a magazine, which is basically CNET, right? Or what's called an internet tools site or an internet software site, which is basically the inside of your computer equivalent of a tool. So, in the old days, maybe you made saws and hammers, and the new days you're making tools to build a website. But it's the same thing. It's a tool. So those are the two kinds of things that I built.
So apparently you obviously did very well in doing these things, and you care for your wife and your kids, and then you build this website, finally going to put your love of the theater into this big, wonderful project. But I'm sort of curious, being the theater geek that you are, you never thought of investing in shows or producing?
Not really. I think that it's a different business, and I don't think I would be good at it. There are people who are extremely good at it. I mean, if you look at the people who continue to make hits of Broadway shows, it's a small list of people. And also, I think it was Warren Buffett who said, if you have extra money lying around, you should invest in things that that you understand, whether it's a product that you love or whatever. And for me, Broadway shows or theater in general as an investment is just not something that I really understand, whereas building internet technology companies, it is something that I understand. So that's why. And honestly, I also think that I am most interested and motivated by getting more people to see more theater. And the simple way for that to happen is to help people go to shows they like. Because if you go to something you like, you're going to go again. Whereas if you go to something you don't like, you might say something like, I don't like theater. That was a waste of time. I'm not going to do it again. So I'm very motivated by getting people to see more theater, and I frankly don't care what the show is. I don't know what you like versus what you don't like, and all I want you to do is to see more that you like. And it could be that your taste and my taste are the same, or it could be that your taste and my taste are very different, and it's all good. So what excites me is not so much making a killing with some show, it's much more about filling up all of the seats of any show with an audience that loves it. Because I just think as humans, I mean, maybe this sounds crazy, but you are a rabbi, so let's talk at a higher plane here.
All right.
This art form, theater, has been around in every culture for forever. It's a basic human thing of sitting together in a room, experiencing something together that is teaching or entertaining or telling a story. And I think that especially in this day of fabulous technology and smartphones and chat rooms, the need to gather together in a space and share something in real time with performers is stronger than it ever was. Some people care about poverty and some people care about women's rights or hunger, and arguably those are all much more important things. But for me, this is my thing, and it animates me, and it animates all of us, and that's really what we're all about.
Oh, we can totally hear that in your voice and your excitement. Tom Melcher, who is the founder and the CEO of ShowScore.com. showscore.com. It's interesting that you put the hyphen in there. Is that because showscore.com without the hyphen was taken?
It is, yes. Yeah. So it was taken, and I would love to get it someday, but we don't have enough money, I guess. But then I also, I thought about it. It's like it's easier to remember what it is, and when you go onto Google now, the arbiter of all things that exist, if you type in show score without the hyphen, we're at the top of the results. So most people, they're like, it's show score or something, and they just go to Google, they type it in, and there we are. But yes, we have the little hyphen. And now I'm sort of attached to it, I have to admit.
Now, the obvious question here is, in terms of this is where showscore.com is right now, how would you, given the money, given the success, expand it? First of all, the obvious one is to take it to other cities like Chicago or Los Angeles. But if you were just to even stay in New York, what would you add?
Well, in New York, we are very happy with the challenge of just doing what we do every day. I mean, to make this all happen every single day, every day, with all of the activity that's going on is a big challenge. So I think New York, we are not planning to make any huge expansions into, say, classical music or opera, things like that. You are right that there is clearly a need for this kind of a website in the other major theater centers in the United States. Even, for instance, in the Denver area, from what we understand, there is, of course, the famous theaters in Denver and the Broadway shows that come through Denver. But my friends who live in Denver, who are theater people, tell me that there's a lot of other great theater in Denver that's small, whether, for instance, it's the students on your campus or at one of the other campuses, or it's community theater. There's a lot of local theater. And it's very hard to find out about it because nobody tracks it all.
And also, within 10 or 20 miles of Denver, you've got Arvada, you've got Fort Collins that have theater too.
Yeah, you've got a lot of theater. Denver's a very cultured community, although Denver's perhaps smaller than New York and LA and San Francisco. It's just a microcosm. So I think what you're going to see in ShowScore is that we will be expanding into all of the other major theater markets in the English language around the world, and taking pretty much the same approach. I mean, it's not rocket science. Let's list all of the shows and all of the prices in a very consumer-focused way with the objective of helping you discover shows you'll love from people you trust, right price for you. I mean, that's what we do. That was our one-sentence thing on day one, and it hasn't changed.
I'm going to give you maybe not a $10 million idea, but a $1 million idea. Do it with synagogues. Go across the country.
Do it with
shuls.
Well, so Rabbi,
yes,
Rabbi, you are very smart, and in fact, this is what we're doing. So what I have not mentioned yet, because you've been asking so many great questions, is we invented a new thing, totally new thing, called ShowScore Experiences. Things you do in between shows. So what we heard, 65% of our members do not live in the New York area, believe it or not, 65%. So in Metro Denver, I think we have 1,000 members already. What we heard from them was that they would come to New York and they were going to see a matinee and an evening show, but they want to do something in the morning. And if you go on TripAdvisor and you search, there's almost nothing. There's really almost nothing to do. So we invented it. And one of the first things that we invented, it's a great story. It's a Jewish story. It's a great story. So in the Broadway blocks, it's just a few blocks on 43rd Street, there is a venue called the Actors Temple.
Of course, yeah.
And I went to see a show there, and I just thought that was the name of it, like the Temple Bar. I mean, I didn't think about it. But I went in, and during intermission, I was looking at the plaques, and it looked like it was actually like a synagogue. So I went back and asked the caretaker if I could go in, and I said, "Is this a synagogue?" He said, "Oh, yes, it's a working synagogue." And I said, "Oh, what's behind those black drapes that are behind the stage?" And he says, "Oh, just some old windows." And I pulled the black drapes back, and they are stunning stained glass windows, floor-to-ceiling stained glass windows. So then I said, "Is it an active congregation?" And he said, "Yes, it's Rabbi Jill Hausman. It's our congregation." And I said, "Would you mind putting me in touch?" And so now we run tours of the Actors Temple.
Yes!
That run once a month. The tour guide is Rabbi Jill Hausman, who, by the way, before she was a rabbi, was a Broadway actor, and she is now the cantor and the rabbi of the synagogue. We sell tickets, and we make money for the temple. And she tells the story. It's where Jack Benny was a congregant. The Three Stooges were a congregant. It turns out the story is that in the 19th century, as I understand it, theater was one step up from prostitution.
Right.
And
at its best, it still is.
So many of the theater people were not welcome in the church, in various faiths. But there was a rabbi in this congregation who said all children are children of God and invited these people to the synagogue, and they came. And it's been in continuous operation since then. And so it is a Jewish-themed experience. And then what we did is we found an educator who is an expert on the Jewish influences of music on American musical theater.
Oh.
So there are, of course, great musicals like Fiddler on the Roof, which are about the Jewish tradition. But it turns out, as some theater fans know, many of the lyricists, many of the composers of American musical theater had a Jewish background.
Of course, yes, of course.
This scholar shows, through some great examples, that the prayers that most Jews know by heart, the chord progressions, the melodies, show up in many Broadway musicals. A show score experience, it's a salon. You go and you meet the scholar and you hear the story. And these are all designed to be like an hour to an hour and a half. We schedule them when you're not going to see a show, and they're extremely popular.
Oh, my goodness. See, you may think that you're not particularly Jewish, but you're Jewish, Tom Melcher. You are a Jew.
If you want to organize your congregation or connect us with UJA or with Hadassah, of course we want everyone to extend their appreciation of the theater. And people with a Jewish background, of course, like any other faith, I'd love to do one. We do a thing at with the Metropolitan Museum of Art where we found a docent who is a theater professional and an art history expert. And you go on a tour of the Metropolitan Museum of Art that is about theater. So you see about 15 paintings and sculptures by Caravaggio and Picasso, greats, right?
Yeah.
But she selected the ones that are about the theater. So it's a brand new way, even if you've been to the Metropolitan Art a million times, or frankly, if you find it intimidating, because sometimes it can be pretty big. It's a way to express your love of the theater through this other art form called visual art. And what's fun was you go on these tours, you meet the other people who are interested. So we do another one with the New York Public Library at Lincoln Center. So most Americans don't know that the New York Public Library is the largest and most extraordinary collection of theater in the world. The vaults in that library at Lincoln Center are astounding. And so we went to them and said, look, can we do a tour where you pay money and you get to go into the vaults and open stuff up and look at it? And they said, do you think people would pay for that? And I said, of course they would pay for that.
Damn right they would.
So
oh, my God.
we do that, and we split the money with the library. It's a fundraiser for the library, and you have to put on little gloves, so you don't get your sweaty fingers on everything. So there are about 25 of these experiences. We just launched, it's called a package, a show score package. So you can buy a ticket to a show on Broadway and get one of these experiences, your choice of the experience. And the two things together are the same price as the ticket at the box office would be, and sometimes it's even less.
Fantastic stuff that Tom Melcher is talking about, all available at the website that he created, showscore.com, show-score.com. It's been such a joy talking to you about the theater and these things that you care about so much. So let me ask you your last question for you, Tom. What, aside from, of course, Fiddler on the Roof, what is your favorite show of all time?
I was worried you were going to ask me that question, and I think I will take the approach favored by King Solomon, I suppose, which is that this is like asking me which of my two daughters is my favorite. And the answer is, that's not a valid question. So for me, in all honesty, the way I think about theater is I don't have a favorite show because it really depends on my mood. It's like saying, what's your all-time favorite piece of music? It's like, well, are you talking about what I'm going to sing or whether,
So let me make it easier on you. I'll make it easy then. What's your favorite show of this past Broadway season?
And again, I'm not being evasive. It really depends. I mean, like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. There might be a show that in this past season, I went with my daughter to see SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay.
And SpongeBob, I didn't know who that character was. I can't even pronounce his name. And, she absolutely loved that show. And for me, after about 10 minutes, I was like, I don't understand the fervor for this, but the costumes and sets for that show are unbelievable. Okay? So I sat there and said, fine. I mean, maybe I don't love every aspect of this show, but I don't love any aspect of, frankly, anything. But I really spent the whole time just marveling at the sets and the costumes. So this is not a politically correct answer. This is just honestly how I feel about it.
Oh, it is politically correct, so I'm going to force you then to answer the different question. What is the worst or one of the worst shows you've ever seen?
Oh, God. I guess the way I would describe it is, what's a show that really did not work for me?
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate with me. I don't remember the name, but in general, I find that shows that are classified more as intellectual performance art, where they're very theoretical and typically they're non-linear and they're not necessarily sensical, those shows, generally speaking, I have a very hard time finding one that works well for me. But I've been to them where I'm sort of like looking at my watch saying, when can I, go get a snack? There are people who give it a standing ovation at the end.
Oh, well, that's yeah.
God bless them.
This has been so much fun talking to Tom Melcher, who is the founder of Showscore.com. All I can do is wish you much continued and further and greater success with this website, with this idea, and thank you ever so much for joining us in the neighborhood.
Well, thank you. It's really a delight to chat with you, and I hope when you come to New York, you and your listeners will see more theater.
Absolutely. Shalom to you.